Disinformation is defined as misinformation that is deliberately disseminated in order to influence or confuse rivals. It is the ultimate instrument of the media, and it may be the most dangerous because it is masquerading as an organization of truth. I'm constantly annoyed that people are distracted by false conspiracies when all around we provide evidence of real conspiracies or mass financial fraud. By supporting disinformation, you are not fighting the occupier. You are not honoring the martyrs. You are not combating imperialism. And you are not striking back at the oppressor. You are protecting the lobby organizations and the cover-up of the activities of its criminal networks. Wake up.
Because their real ambition has nothing whatever to do with the environment. I first learnt this when the late Eric Ellington, who was one of the founders of GreenPeace, who became quite a friend of mine and was a genuine environmentalist, nobody more non-political than he, told me that a couple of years after they had founded GreenPeace, they had all had to leave because they weren't politicians and they weren't political. They didn't know how to deal with the Marxists, who, he said, had taken over the organization for purposes that clearly had nothing to do with the environment and were everything to do with destroying the economies of the West as fast as possible from within without a shot being fired. And I said to him, Eric, I said, look, you're about as political as a rabbit. And you're talking about Marxists having taken over your movement. Doesn't this all sound a bit kind of flaky and extreme? He said, look, that's what happened. The Berlin Wall came down, all these people piled out of it, piled into the Green Movement, and they've taken it over and they're running it. He said, I call them watermelons. They're green on the outside and red on the in.
You know, when a majority of people start agreeing with you, maybe it's time to stop hitting them over the head and sit down with them and try and figure out which way we should go here.
Yeah, and it's when an environmental movement became a political movement.
When the Berlin Wall fell down, a lot of peaceniks moved into the environmental movement because there wasn't a peace movement anymore, and they brought their leftist politics with them. Basically,
anti-industry and
anti-corporatism, anti-capitalism, anti-industry, and basically learned to use green language in a way that really was cloaking an agenda that had more to do with anti-globalization and anti-capitalism than it did anything to do with science or ecology. So a whole bunch of things came together there. The extremism element, the politicization and the movement to the far left, and the adoption of positions that had no basis in science. That is when I had to leave.
In my opinion, you need, for instance, a tax on carbon emissions. I think that dealing with global warming will require a lot of investment. You see, global warming requires big investment, and that could be the motor of the world economy. Energy is got to cost more until you introduce those new things. So it will be painful.
You're talking about this being the end of an era and needing to create a whole new paradigm for the economic model of the country, of the world, right?
Yes.
Well, one of the British newspapers this morning had a headline, "Welcome to Socialism." It's not going that way, is it?
Well, you know, it's very interesting.
I'm an activist with financial resources directed towards investment in creating the conditions for change.
Does the Prime Minister not realize that the kinds of comments made by his minister in fact point to a political campaign against a number of registered charities which the government simply doesn't like?
Some of the radical groups in Canada are being financed by groups in the United States who are opposed to the development of any sort of hydrocarbons.
The federal government has lashed out at some environmentalists and First Nations groups opposed to a proposed oil pipeline, painting them as radicals, ready to do anything to prevent any and all resource development in Canada.
The Natural Resources Minister sent out a fiery open letter saying environmental and other radical groups seek to block this. These groups threaten to hijack our regulatory system to achieve their radical ideological agenda. They use funding from foreign special interest groups to undermine Canada's national economic interest.
Growing concern has been expressed to me about the use of foreign money to really overload the public consultation phase of regulatory hearings just for the purpose of slowing down the process.
They have an agenda, and it seems to be ideologically driven, and it's financed, without exaggeration, by billionaire socialists in the United States.
Vice President, I just enjoyed so much your whole speech, but I was particularly pleased that you gave such a strong endorsement for the free trade agreement for all the Americans. Subject that has been of great concern to me for many years, and particularly recently, and I think it's absolutely essential for the strength of our economy.
The government is still fending off attacks over its alleged war on environmental groups. Sparks flew when Environment Minister Peter Kent said that some charities are actually laundering money from foreign donors. Peggy Nash, what do you think?
We know that it's been environmental organizations that have been targeted by this government very explicitly. So why are they targeting certain environmental organizations like Tides Canada?
Well, Tides is one of the original social enterprises and has been a leader in providing financial services for the nonprofit sector to help people give away money. Many people work on specific issues. My passion is to work on creating the kinds of organizations and circumstances of which many flowers can bloom.
We have created a $60 million endowment, and First Nations are all aware of the specific benefits that will accrue to them.
It's not a coincidence that both Idle No More and Occupy are law-breaking, vague, counterculture media creations, because they are organized and supported by the same people. Idle No More and Occupy Toronto are both what we call astroturf organizations. They pretend to be grassroots movements, but they're artificial, bought and paid for with professionals with big PR budgets.
Rockefellers, come back. We don't want your New World Order, you know? We don't want your world government. Your world government will fail, okay? Your world government will fail. Will fail.